If you haven't seen episode 3 from Moon Knight yet, it's unlikely that you're too worried about spoilers. However, there are spoilers in today's episode. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk all major movie and television news, theories, breakdowns, and much more. I, of course, am your host, Chris, and Moon Knight has been an extremely refreshing series so far. And when I say refreshing, I mean to say it's existed outside of the MCU, but we all know that it's still inside the MCU. There's nothing that we require to know to watch Moon Knight and enjoy it. There are no immediate connecting factors. There's not, oh, well, you missed this one scene in Iron Man 3, so you're not going to know exactly what's going on. They've mentioned a few things like Madripoor, and we saw Bast was a statue in one of the secret hidden god chambers in the Pyramid of Giza. However, those are very minor connecting points, and the refreshingness of getting a unique, new, and differently created series for Marvel has been absolutely wonderful. However, we do need to talk about some of the underlying connecting factors and where Moon Knight will take us in the future of Marvel, because although it has been existing outside of the mainstream Marvel creations, it will fully connect, and Moon Knight will become a free agent to join a team in the future for the MCU. So today in this video we're going to talk about how the introduction of this God Council and how a lot of the details of what they said and what we saw inside the Pyramid of Giza has forever changed the MCU. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell. You can also check me out on other socials, Instagram at Chris M. Rosser, Twitter at The Culture Chris, and the link to my Discord and all of those other socials are in the description down below. Feel free to check them out. But come on, this is something pretty crazy, and it is one of the biggest changes to happen in the MCU in a very, very long time, other than, of course, the multiverse, which we're going to get into very soon here with Doctor Strange. However, the introduction of these gods specifically is different than any other god we've seen in the MCU, because they formed a very important council. These also aren't cosmic gods, you know, the Eternals and the Celestials and all these different cosmic beings that exist out there, the Galactus level gods we'll call them. These are very different gods. These are gods who seemingly have come to Earth to bless it with their presence and to use their abilities to help it, but we've learned in Moon Knight episode 3 that there are a lot more gods than we probably knew. Moon Knight was always going to follow Egyptology. That's a big part of where it comes from. Khonshu is the god of the moon, and he's in charge of, you know, all of these different moon phases, tides, star night things that are very important in Egyptian mythology, but also for our character Moon Knight. He gets his powers, which were very well displayed in episode 3. He has a little bit of a speed boost, a strength boost, he gets healed, and Mark Spector is just a very capable fighter on top of all of the protection he gets from Khonshu. But we're here to talk about that council during episode 3 that happened inside the Pyramid of Giza, where we see several different statues representing gods, and of course the presence of other gods and their avatars. Specifically, we were introduced to Horus, Isis, Tefnut, Osiris, and Hathor. Now specifically in this episode, this council was called by Khonshu, who was banished off of this council a while ago, because Khonshu wants to say, hey look, Harrow is trying to release Ammit, who this very council bound and sealed away from freedom so that they wouldn't run rampant through the planet and kill people, whoever she saw fit, because she sees all things. So babies and people who haven't committed any wrong are being judged and killed, and she's meddling in the humans' world. Now, this council made it very clear to us that the gods, that this group of gods specifically, had decided to not meddle in Earth any longer, and that the avatars are purely for observational purposes, which we've seen Khonshu hasn't really been doing as much. He's very involved, and he puts his own justice on people based off of what he sees fit, after they've already committed the crime. And he said that in episode 2 when he says, I only attack or harm those who have already deserved it, and that's real justice. Whereas Ammit is more like a, hey, you're going to be bad, so I'm going to kill you before you do something bad type of justice. Both these gods are hands-on. Whereas this council of gods, known as the Ennead, has decided that they're not going to be involved in the humans anymore, and that humanity turned their back on them. The assumption is that these gods helped create the empire that is Egypt. The Egyptian stories, the pyramids, all of the technology and the understanding of science that they developed was because of the gods. At some point, humans turned on the gods, whether because they stopped praying or idolizing to them, or they actually turned on them and started to attack them. Whatever the reason, the Ennead decided that they're not going to be helping or even involving themselves with humans anymore, and that their avatars who are on Earth are simply there to observe. One of the big questions that I think we need to have is, what other gods are there? One thing we know for sure is Bast has a statue inside the Pyramid of Giza. Now, Bast is the god who gives the power of Black Panther to the Wakandans in the comics and in the Black Panther movie. We very, very briefly saw this god, and we got the very brief story of how Bast was blessing Wakanda with the power of the Black Panther. But we've also been closely following the Norse mythology, which is Thor, Odin, Loki, all of that going on with Asgard. That's also Norse mythology. That's part of these guys being gods. Thor is technically a god. Odin the All-Father is a god, equal that of Horus. So where did these gods come from, and how much do they intermingle with themselves? Do these Egyptian gods know about Asgard? Do they know about Thor? And have they intermingled? Do they come from the same place? Do they have the same origin? And they've just kind of exceeded in power to this different plane where they are above humans, and humans are actually kind of weak and pathetic comparatively to the wonders of the universe. These are very, very big questions, because at the very end of the episode, after they have bound Khonshu, they also say that they've done this to many other gods, and many other gods have been bound. So how many other gods are there, and what importance will they play moving forward in the MCU? Now, typically this would just be a pretty open-ended question that would be like, hey look, they're kind of introducing gods, what does that mean? However, we know a very important detail about Thor Love and Thunder: Gorr the God Butcher. Now, it's 100% just a coincidence that we're starting to get introduced to these gods, like we've seen with Bast, like we've seen with the Norse mythology with Odin and with Thor, and now here are all the Egyptian gods, and we're actually learning a little bit more about their councils and their life and how they live. But Gorr the God Butcher is right around the corner, and what is Gorr the God Butcher going to do? Well, he's going to be butchering gods. He's going to go on tour of some sorts in Thor Love and Thunder, and using the all-black sword, which at the moment in the MCU has only been described as a mysterious unknown weapon. I think that there is a very important connecting point here that we don't quite understand just yet. We haven't even gotten a Thor Love and Thunder trailer. We don't know if maybe Gorr is coming after Thor, or if Thor is going after Gorr to stop him from killing all of these gods. It's very unclear at this point. However, Gorr the God Butcher is well known for the destruction of gods, much like what we've just met and seen in Moon Knight. Khonshu, for example, is a god that Gorr would try to kill. But so is Thor, Bast, any of these gods that we're starting to be introduced to. So I think that maybe they're opening up a new sector, I'll call it, of the MCU that might go hand in hand with some of the darker tones like the Moon Knight characters we're hoping to see with Blade, Ghost Rider, but maybe it's the opposite of that with the gods. The Midnight Suns take care of the demons, but if demons exist, I suppose so too do gods. And I'm curious to see what their involvement, if any more, will be in the MCU alongside, the Eternals, the Celestials, Galactus. These are all big, very strong and powerful characters that we're starting to be introduced to, and it's taking us into a new direction in the MCU, which hasn't quite yet been laid for us. We're all hoping to see these big future changes in Multiverse of Madness, but there's a lot more going on in the MCU than just the Multiverse of Madness. There's also the introduction of the gods. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Do you think these gods will have a more important role in the future, and that this is one of the big connecting points of Moon Knight to the MCU? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. As always, thank you to everybody who watched till the very end of the video. If you found it helpful, useful, or entertaining, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell. And I'll catch you guys all in the next one right here on Cosmic Culture.